Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Wander and Prepare. Today I have a very exciting thing to show you. So I have a couple knives here from Aurora Knife and Tool, and I first learned about Aurora Knife and Tool at the Blade Show in Atlanta last year, and super cool. And if I'm not mistaken, like, he didn't even have any production knives to sell while he was there. He was literally just showing off some of his knives, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe he was sold out by the time I got there, but he didn't have anything to sell. But he had a bunch of his knives to show off, and I was super impressed from the time I picked it up. They felt awesome, super good action on them. So I reached out to him a little bit ago, asked him about reviewing some knives, and he was gracious enough to send a couple to me. So let's dive right in and show you what I got. So here's the box. Really cool looking on the outside. The design's really cool. And when I was at Blade Show, he actually had a couple with this design on the scale of the knife. Super cool too, and look really cool. But these are more his production type versions. And inside the box, he has this little message that says, "Hey, we did it. What's in this box is one of our wildest dreams come true, and you made that happen. So from the bottom of our hearts and the top of this box, thank you." And he has a little bitty message down there that says, "We include you here in case you missed it." So, and one of the reasons why he did that was one of the knives he created, and you'll probably see in a different review, is called the Hive Mind. And basically he put a bunch of different collaborations of different knives together, and he come up with the knifiest knife design, and it came out with the Hive Mind. Well, his first knife that he had was actually called the Truffle. And inside the box, he also give a pin, and he give a nice little cloth that has the logo on it. Although, quite honestly, it's kind of pretty. I don't want to take it out of the package, so. But really cool looking. And then here's the actual box the knife come in. So this was his first design and his first production, and this is called the Truffle. Kind of cool. So this one is actually black washed titanium scales and S35 steel. And the Truffles did not initially come in a dark wash like this, but inside, super nice case, says Aurora Knife and Tool on one side, and then on the other side is their little slogan that says "New Every Day," and comes with some different screws, a couple extra pivots. And then inside the plastic is what they call the Dark Truffle. So here it is, again, titanium black washed scales, S35, titanium pocket clip, and this one has 3 different deploying methods. So it first has a back flipper, it has a front flipper, and then it has not a thumb stub but a thumb opening. But the action on these are just crazy good. The other really unique thing, it looks kind of like a button. Like there's a button that kind of actuates the blade, but it's not a button. If you can see inside there, it's actually a liner lock, and when you press that button, you can see it moves that liner out of the way. But when you press that button and that liner moves out of the way, it drops down so amazingly smooth and easy. But super cool. One other thing to look at this, so it's S35. This is actually a what they call a compound grind. So it's kind of a Tonto style blade shape. A little different because this side of the shape is curved. But if you see these little contour lines in there, so this is one grind, this is a second grind, and that's why they call that a compound grind. So I think they look super cool. I've never owned one before, so I don't know that I'm just the greatest fan of them, but look super cool. I personally think if I had this knife and if I owned this knife, I would probably sharpen the Tonto style out of there and make this just a regular click point blade, and think that would be a lot better for me anyway. I'm terrible at sharpening Tontos, and just not really good at it, so that's one of the things I would change. But from a cutting task, you'll see here in a minute, pretty sure it's going to lend itself very well, kind of having that tip right there, that secondary tip. So we'll see. All right, so just the fit and finish of the knife feels pretty amazing. it just feels amazingly sharp, like on that blade. Like it's hard to describe on camera how sharp that blade feels, but I think we'll see it once we look at the test, or look at the cutting test. But man, just beautiful knife overall. Again, everything on it's kind of black washed except for those screws, but super good looking black washed titanium there. And again, super good action. And no matter how you deploy this thing, it shoots out of there pretty easy. That's me. There we go. All right, so pretty cool action, good knife. All right, so let's jump right in. Let's see if this thing is actually sharp and actually cuts things. All right, so first, you know, we always start out with a paper test, so let's see how it does. I think pretty good. Let's see if I can actually get that tip there and show. It's kind of hard to get that angle, but yep, it's sharp too on that compound grind. There you go. But man, I don't know if y'all saw that earlier. I was just shaving a little piece of that paper there. But super sharp. There you go. Look at that. Look at that little shaving of paper that it cut off and how thin that was. So crazy sharp. Just exciting to cut. But let's see if it actually cuts anything besides paper. Let me clean my table off here. Get a couple things out of the way. All right. So let's start out with some Titan Survivor cord. So you guys have seen this in a lot of my videos. This is Titan Survivor cord, and I always like to show this because a lot of people they're not familiar with this, but I'm actually not seeing my metal snare. Let me see it on this end. I feel it here. But in there, what makes this super, super hard to cut, having a hard time finding it right now, is there's a metal snare in there. I feel it there. I just can't get it separated. But let's see how it does when I try to cut it. So let's first cut it this way. Man, goes through that with ease. And now let's see what happens when we put it down. So I'm going to try to cut it with the two different angles of the blade. So first with this side of the blade, if I can get it flat enough here. Really easy, cuts through that. Holy crap, I don't know if you can see my actual cutting mat here, but pretty sizable little hole in that. All right, now let's see with that little tip. Oh, wow, yep. Goes through that with ease too, so pretty amazing getting through that, and pretty impressive. All right, so that was the Titan Survivor cord. Step it up a little bit. So here is some polypropylene rope. This is not climbing rope, so this is just standard rope, but let's see how it cuts through that. Pretty easy. All right, let's see how it cuts through here. We'll first cut with the belly. All right, missed those couple, but that's just, again, when you got your thumb or your back flipper there kind of in the way of the blade, so you see it's kind of hard to get like all the way down. But just to show you how that's the design, not necessarily the sharpness of the knife, let's cut through it with that tip right there. And as you can see, it goes through with ease. So super, super sharp. All right, let's continue with the rope. So we have some standard jute twine here. Really thick stuff though, so pretty hard to cut through sometimes, but let's see how it does. It's gonna be hard to kind of cut with that tip, so this is mostly gonna be done with the belly, but because of that back flipper, I'm gonna have to roll it just a little bit to kind of get all the pieces of that rope. So struggling a little bit, but I don't think that's the sharpness of the knife. I think it's just the, there we go. So as you can tell, even though it struggled, that's a pretty clean cut. A pretty good job there. All right. Now, this is the tough one. This is polypropylene rope too, but this is super strong stuff. So this is rated to over 1,000 pounds tensile strength. And you probably heard me tell the story if you watched any of my other videos, but when I went to pick this up at Tractor Supply, they actually had to use a chain cutter to cut through this. I had a pocket knife in my pocket, although it was not all that sharp at the time, and it struggled to get through this. So let's just see how it does. All right, roll it a little bit. It's the other problem. I usually try to have this taped. Cut through it a lot easier, but really struggling with this one for sure. So it'll get through them, but man, oh, there you go. That tip is actually quite sharp. Look there. So struggled a little bit, not the cleanest cut whatsoever, but that one struggled a little bit on that one, which again, pretty hard rope, and I think that the grind of this knife makes this one just a little bit more difficult. All right, told y'all I normally wipe it on my shirt. I smart this time and kept me a rag in my pocket so I didn't have to wipe it on my shirt. All right, get these little fibers out of the way. Love this rope for how hard it is to cut, but I hate the little fibers. And let's step it up. So here is a 24,000 pound toe strap. All right, so let's see how it goes through cutting this way. Put a little pressure on it, but goes through pretty easy. Now the hard one is always when I set it down. Now this is the only I do not really care for Tonto style blades, but I think it's going to lend itself well to cutting this. So let's see how it does, because that extra tip right there, I think, is going to make this one a little bit easier to cut. So let's see how it does. If I can hold on to it, rather. All right. Struggling still a little bit, but goes through it. All right, let's see how it does. Struggles a little bit, but if I get down on that tip, goes through it a lot cleaner. So pretty good job with that. And let's keep on going. So let's look at some zip ties. So here is a standard duty zip tie. Think it's going to go through this one pretty well. Let me get my cardboard on top of my paper there. Oh, struggled just a little bit. Got through it, but definitely struggled some. All right, so let's see if I can cut it with this belly here. Kind of hard because I can't get it real flat on the table. So let's take this edge and cut it with that. Definitely struggle with that one quite a bit. So see how it does with the other zip ties. So here we got a medium duty zip tie. Goes through that pretty easy. That wasn't bad. Now let's get that tip. Some pressure on it. When I say pressure, having to put a lot of pressure on it to get through that. I wish I could get the belly of it flat, so let's see if I can kind of do it on the edge here. There we go. And see how it does. So the belly on a compound grind is usually like a mostly flat grind, so it usually lends itself well to cutting, but it's just hard with that back flipper in place and kind of getting that out. So let's see how it does once I get that out of the way. Still pretty tough though. Just not getting through it. So I was able to tear it, so it got through it mostly. But one of the challenges of having a back flipper and getting the use of all that blade on a flat surface. All right, lastly, we have the heaviest duty zip tie that I can find, and let's see how it does. Goes through that pretty easy. Let's see how it does with the tip. See if I can cut through. A lot of pressure, but I was able to get through it. All right, so now let's do the cardboard test. So first, let's just go up and down. Does that one pretty easy. Ooh, very interesting. I don't know if that's me. I don't know if it was me trying to put so much pressure, but my finger almost feels like there's a little hot spot kind of right there. If you can see, maybe like a little cutout for where that thumbstick goes, but when I have my hand right there, it does just a little bit of a hot spot there, so that's just something to note. Definitely feeling that a little bit. All right, going sideways on it. man, cuts through that with ease. All right, so most knives can cut that way on the box pretty easy, but a lot of them struggle to cut flat. And again, this is where I think that tip is going to help just a little bit. Yep, goes through that with ease. So that is the secondary tip, kind of on the tanto point. Let's see how the main tip does. Get my paper into there so it don't blow away. Does really well with that. That was me, I didn't get the edge of the box there. All right, really good with that one. Yeah, that's very interesting. I think that's what it is. I think it's that cutout for the thumb stud right there, kind of creating a hot spot. Now again, I was having to put a lot of pressure to go through those, but that's just something to note, that a little bit of a hot spot there. And if you, so, all right, let's do that again. So if you notice, well, that one I didn't, but when you go down, if you get close to right there on the knife, so a lot of times you see me do this in a video, this is not the knife's fault. This is actually a very good thing. They have a sharpening coil right there, and basically that just allows that blade to be sharpened quite a bit more, but that's my fault for just not doing a very nice and good cut on this. So that is not the fault of the knife. As you can see, keeps, well, it's tore because it's tearing going through there, but if I don't get close to that, it goes through there with ease. So just something to note. All right, now after all that cutting, let's go ahead and look at this blade, because it did struggle just a little bit, but I don't see any issues in that edge whatsoever. A little dirty, but I don't see any issues. There went one of my pieces of paper. That's why I bring multiple. All right, let's see how it does and see if it still does the paper cut pretty easily. That one tore a little bit, but I think it's me and the wind. All right, there we go. So there you have it. This is the Dark Truffle from Aurora Knife and Tool. S35 VN on the blade, titanium handle scales, and then you got some different accents, and a really cool feature of it, it's a liner lock, but this button here is what actually actuates the liner, and crazy smooth action. So again, you got 3 deploying methods. You got the back flipper, you got a front flipper, and then you got a little thumb opening, and all of them very, very smooth. So check it out. If you haven't checked out Aurora Knife and Tools, they make some really, really good quality knives. And I don't think I mentioned it in the beginning, but S35 titanium scales, and this thing is only $200. I think that is a really, really, really good deal, and just can't beat it for the price, the quality. Again, super cool knives, super good quality. So check them out. So guys, that's all I have. So just remember, as we're out there wandering and preparing, let's make sure we do so by faith and not by sight. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you.